It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Good morning. Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Encompass More Asset Management is registered as an investment advisor with the SEC and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration with the SEC does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Hey, the guys are here. Let's find out about retirement savings, shall we?
GCES.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good morning.
Clinton Smith, Galen Bargerstock with us here this morning on Indiana in the Morning. So our conversation about retirement savings today, and we actually have had several people ask us this question, and Clinton, you were talking about it a couple of moments ago. So let's spend some time talking about inflation, which certainly these are inflationary times in which we are involved. How does it impact our retirement? Are there ways that we can actually maneuver around inflation to our benefit? Let's just beat that subject up a little bit.
So inflation, just to start, inflation, a lot of people don't understand really how it works. Everyone says it. No one really understands the different facets of it. But, ultimately low-income families and people with a lower income are usually affected the most by inflation. Lower-income families tend to spend a lot more money on necessities like rent, utilities and stuff like that. So whenever prices start to rise, it's really the lower income families that are affected the most because they have less purchasing power, because inflation is literally just you being able to buy less with the money that you have. And if you only have a limited amount of funds and those all go towards necessities, lower income families are the first ones really to feel the brunt of inflation.
Yeah, and Galen, of course, that impacts our ability to save for anything, let alone for retirement. And sometimes retirement naturally takes a spot lower on the list because of what inflation does.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're making, you're getting by and everything's fine with what you're doing now, you still might be tapping into your savings accounts that you have on the side. So you're burning up more money that you had set aside for a rainy day just to catch up with today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's actually two issues there. I'm not saving as much as I wanted to or should be saving for retirement. And then if I'm exacerbating that by tapping into monies that I have already put aside for retirement, ouch.
Yeah. I mean, the best way that I explain inflation to everybody, and it's not just inflation, you just have to think about what life was like 20 years ago for you. How much new information or products are you buying or purchasing now? Like, take, for instance, your cell phone. Your cell phone's the biggest thing. We didn't have smartphones like this where it'll do everything for you, and now you're spending money on DoorDash, and you're spending in different ways. It's not just inflation and the cost of everything. It's all of the new things that are going to be coming into this world that you're also going to want to have money to buy as well.
Yeah, Clinton, we really do need to audit what we're doing with our finances, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, if you're worried about inflation, obviously cutting costs is the first place to look. I'm the first one to tell you I can buy something off of TikTok or Amazon or Instagram from an ad that a 30-second ad, I'm into it, I need it by the end. And it's those kind of purchases that really can set you back as well. The weird part, so this is something that we just talked about, the weird silver lining of inflation. So people actually do end up benefiting from inflation in a way, which I think is interesting. So if you think about people that got loans whenever the economy was really good and really high and inflation was lower, they got lower interest rates and they're spending less. So you still have that loan that you got back then when your dollar was worth so much. But now, if you think of anyone that has a loan that they got before inflation went up, all of those loans are being paid back with a dollar that's actually less than the dollar was whenever you bought that loan. So that's the only silver lining, is that if you have loans from before inflation went up, you're now paying back that loan with dollars that are technically worth less money. So borrowers, in a way, do get to benefit from inflation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a silver lining. I thought I'd share.
Kind of hard to convince folks of that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
It's actually helpful in that one small way because it's hurtful in so many other ways. So Galen, let's talk about what we should do. And I think discipline probably is the first word, isn't it?
Not so much discipline. I mean, it's more education for me. So you have to kind of think about everything you have going on in your household, what you can cut, get out of the way, and then you have to, figure out what's going on currently and what you want for your retirement goals, because everything boils down to a risk tolerance when you're an investor. Mm-hmm. And with a higher risk tolerance, you're going to hopefully potentially make more interest, which is going to hedge that inflation as you age, and you'll have more money available. It's just really educating yourself on the market, how everything works, to get comfortable with playing a higher risk. Because I can tell you that for the last 4 years, people that have played the market are ended up having a lot more money, even with the ups and downs, than people that were in the bond market, the safer sides, because the safer stuff just hasn't produced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing about it to me is as we stop and we think about, the idea that you should not panic and here comes everything at me. I better sell. I better get out of this. And riding the wave, whether the wave is going downward or is going upward, and figuring that in the end I'm still going to benefit. That's a really hard ask of folks.
It is, especially if you already see that there's a bad economy and then you just look at your statement and you lost 30 grand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a big impact, but everything comes to the whole education about the whole process. Mm-hmm. Risk is to me, a time horizon. How long do you have before you need access to that money? First off, tells me how much risk you need to put onto it. And then from conversations that I would have with you, questions that I'm going to ask you, we kind of figure your risk tolerance. And hopefully, it is a little bit higher than what your normal what you're flocking to, and you'll have better returns.
Yeah. Clinton convinced me.
So Galen says that education is the first one, but I have a list right here that says number 1, cut costs where you can, consider buying generic products, go through your budget, look at everything, make sure that you don't have a subscription that you've been paying for 6 years that you didn't even know that you had, and really understanding where your money goes every month. Yeah. If you don't have a budget, that's the best way to start. Every month write down, even my mother did this growing up in like an old notebook where every month she would write down all the bills that she would pay and how much they were. That way she knew how much she had to have every month just to make sure we were covering the bills. Mm-hmm. So once you really figure that out, that's where you can then start deciding how much am I able to save. The lower income families, that's probably the first place that they're going to start looking for whenever they do need an emergency fund for something. That's usually the first place to go is, well, I don't have a choice. I have to take my money out of my 401k. Mm-hmm. And then they end up having a loan to pay back for that. So it can snowball if you're not prepared beforehand. We're in the deep of inflation right now. It's not like it's new. It's been going on for months. So at this point, really cutting costs and buckling down, trying to get out of it and getting ahead is really the best way to curb inflation.
Galen, how advisable is it for people who have automatic withdrawals from their pay that is going into their retirement savings? How advisable is it to change that formula, change whatever that ratio is? Well, you tell me.
Yeah,
should people be doing that? Should they be thinking about that?
That's a tough one. You have to do what you have to do is the first thing that I would say. So, maybe you were putting in 15% before, and now you can only afford to put 10 aside. As long as you're putting more than the matching money wherever you're at, wherever you're going to, you're keeping track, you're getting all of the free, and that's where the whole risk tolerance of how you should play the funds and what you should be in the market would help you, mm-hmm. versus you putting more dollars in, playing it a little bit safer. So adding risk is going to help you put less money in monthly as well. But, people have gotten...
That's literally a question that a politician could answer for you, which is a good day since the rally's happening today. But you can literally answer that both ways, because if you're right there at retirement and you are in something super aggressive and you see the money to start take a dip, you have to protect yourself. And at that point, you would advise to go into something that has zero to little or no risk, because you're so close and you can't afford to lose $70,000 6 months before you retire. So on that hand, it would be advisable to move it. But then on the other side, if you're younger, chances are you want to continue to ride that wave. So it's like it would be different for everyone.
It is, and people have had increases, and they are used to putting more money in from their paycheck and not noticing the dollar amount that's going in. To me, it's each an individual scenario that I would have to, be presented with the option. But anytime you can afford to put more savings away, always put more savings away.
Yeah. People who are just now getting into setting up a retirement account and are beginning to think about those things, who may have a number of years before they really have to worry about withdrawals or anything like that. 20 or 30 years down the road, I plan to retire. Therefore, I can set up my plan based upon what factors now, because of the inflation isn't going to last forever. And if it does, then our country's in really, really deep trouble. So we can figure this inflation is going to flatten out, and then we should probably get deflation for a while.
Hopefully.
At some point. And so we hope to be set up by that time. So strategically, it really does vary, as Clinton said, between the person who's near retirement and the person who down the road is thinking, 20 or 30 years from now, this is going to be a concern.
Yeah. No, it is completely different. A 40-year-old's concerns are different from a 60-year-old. And also what you spend your money on is different as well. So that all ties into the savings, because the older you are, hopefully, the more likely that you are to have your mortgage paid off or paid down, which you do have extra money now to set aside and invest.
Yeah. A couple of minutes left with our GCES guys this morning. Clinton, you were also telling me about a guide to determining how you're going to set up your retirement. That's always a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people, that's where they don't really understand what they're going to do or how they're going to wrap their head around getting to retirement. So it's actually one of the topics that we talked about in our show, Our 2 Cents, where we kind of just break it down easily, like, hey, if you're trying to figure it out on your own, which we don't recommend, you should just call us instead. But here are the steps of what Galen goes through whenever he actually sits down with someone to help them understand what retirement is going to look like, whether it's in a year, 6 months, or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Setting up those goals that requires some conversation, and it requires a little bit of self-honesty with yourself too, because there are some folks that say, I anticipate that at this age I'm going to start putting this together, and that's going to happen for me at this age, and so I'm going to count on that now. It might be a little bit early, a little premature. You have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. Once people sit down with Galen too, there's a lot of things that they might not see. Do you know what I mean? Where they might not even know that it's a goal that they should have financially, because they haven't looked that well into their retirement to really understand where they might have a little gap in coverage, or they might have a little loss of income here or there. Mm-hmm. So it's really, whenever Galen sits down with people, helping them figure out what it is that they have going on, and then where's the gaps in that for coverage? Where could you possibly do better? Mm-hmm. And that's where we help people determine their goals of what they want in retirement.
All right, gents, we're out of time. How about that? That was fast.
That was quick
today, wasn't it? Man.
Yeah.
All right, so folks want to get started on this road. What should they do?
Just give us a call, 724-915. Sorry, 724-915. Right? Sorry, I almost cried. 724-915-0000. Or just stop by our office, 1780 Philadelphia Street. There's always someone there from 9 to 5.
GCES. Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com.
This is Boomer Esiason with the Sports Minute. The White Sox lost their 120th game yesterday, tied the New York Mets